Hace Inglés presenta Into the Story, el podcast para aprender inglés con historias reales contadas por gente de todo el mundo. Today we have a very special storyteller. Alastair from the English Learning for Curious Minds podcast is going to be telling us a story about busking, which best translates as música callejera en español. Como muchos jóvenes en Inglaterra, Alastair a los 18 años decide tomarse un año sabático para conocer el mundo y pronto se encuentra en un tren en dirección a Francia.
The idea is that you go and have lots of different experiences that you haven't ever had when you're at school. And I wanted to do something a little bit different with my time.
Life in France does not go to plan, and Alastair finds himself on the street playing his bagpipes, su gaita, as a way to earn enough money to survive and pay for his hotel. Then one day, a bizarre and unexpected event happens while Alastair is playing his bagpipe for his audience in the streets of Lille. Keep listening to find out what happened to Alastair that day. Si quieres apoyarnos para seguir produciendo nuevos y mejores episodios, comparte este podcast con un amigo o amiga que necesite ayuda con su inglés. Y si utilizas Apple Podcasts, déjanos una valoración de 5 estrellas. Thank you so much. All right, antes de escuchar la historia de hoy, veamos 6 palabras y expresiones interesantes que utiliza Alastair en este episodio. First off, a word you'll hear throughout the episode today is the English word busking, spelt Busking. Busking describes a situation in which a person or a group of people, buskers, play an instrument or perform in the street and collect money, usually spare change from the public. Busking. Next, to get into. This expression, to get into, has a few key meanings in English. Firstly, you might hear people talk about getting into university. In this case, get into means to be accepted. But in today's podcast, Alastair uses to get into to mean to get involved in or to become interested in an activity or a discussion. For instance, you could say, I recently got into football. I play 2 to 3 times a week. Or if someone says, I really got into the music, I couldn't stop dancing, it means they really started to enjoy the music. To get into. Next, let's talk about the expression to be one step ahead. Alastair uses this expression to talk about moving to France before starting a French language degree at university. In this context, to be one step ahead means to be better prepared than other students also studying French at university. To be one step ahead. Next, to support oneself. So if you hear someone talk about supporting themselves or supporting their family, this could mean a number of things depending on the context. You'll hear Alastair talk about playing the bagpipes to support himself in France. In this way, the expression means to provide for himself financially, to earn enough money to live off, to support oneself. Next, dubious. In English, the word dubious can be used in a number of situations to mean doubting, uncertain, or suspicious. For example, if someone says, I was extremely dubious about accepting the offer from the car salesman, it means that they don't trust the salesman, or they question the genuineness of the offer. You could also use the word dubious in a sentence like, I had the dubious role of hosting the concert. In this case, the word dubious suggests that the responsibility of hosting the concert is actually unpleasant and not as honorable, glamorous, or fun as someone might think. Dubious. And finally, you'll hear Alastair use the expression out of the corner of one's eye. To see something out of the corner of your eye means to see something to the side of where you are looking. In other words, it means I wasn't looking directly at the object when I saw it, and I may not have seen it clearly. So, out of the corner of one's eye. ¿Quieres la transcripción, la ficha de vocabulario y un test de comprensión de este episodio? Sigue el enlace en las notas del programa en tu mismo reproductor de podcast. Okay, let's get into the story.
My name is Alastair Budge. I'm 34 years old. I'm originally from the UK, as you might be able to tell from my accent, from the south of England. In the UK, it is a relatively common thing for people to take what's called a gap year. So a year off between finishing high school and starting university. And people tend to do lots of different things. Some people will go traveling. Some people will get a job. The idea is that you go and have lots of different experiences that you haven't ever had when you were at school. And I wanted to do something a little bit different with my time. And I thought, what am I good at, and what can I what do I want to develop? What skills do I want to get better at? And I had a place to study French and Italian at university, so I thought, you know what, I'd like to go and spend some time living in France so I can try and be one step ahead when I arrive at university. And I thought, what can I do in France? Well, I don't really have any skills because I'm only 18 years old, but I am a native English speaker, and perhaps I can get a job at a restaurant or something like that. So I thought, okay, I'll try.
So just like that, Alastair decided to spend his gap year in France and try his luck getting a job as a waiter there.
I got on a train because you can actually get on a train from England to France. You can take the Eurostar, and the first stop on the Eurostar in France is Lille, which is a sort of industrial city in northeastern France. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just go around some of the restaurants and see if anyone will take me. I'd never really applied for a job before, so I didn't really know how any of this stuff worked. I thought, print out a CV and someone will say, yes, that sounds like the kind of person that we'd like to be a waiter in our restaurant, and that's how the world worked. So I did that. I went around restaurants for around a week. It turns out that that's not how the world works, and no one called me back, and I was unable to get a job or unable to get anyone interested in employing me at all, which, reflecting back on it now, is hardly surprising, but for me at the time was a little bit surprising.
Alastair's plan to work in a restaurant was not working, so he needed a plan B.
I had a secret weapon in my armory, which was that alongside being able to speak some French, I could also play the bagpipes. So the bagpipes, for listeners who might not be aware what those are, that is the traditional instrument from Scotland. There's it's kind of like a recorder, I guess, with a big bag in it, and it makes a lot of noise. And I had grown up until I was 13 in Scotland, and my father is Scottish and was able to play the bagpipes. And I'd also, from when I was 16 or so, I'd started doing busking, which is when you play an instrument in the streets and you put a hat or a case down there, and generous people give you coins, or if you're lucky, paper money to support you. So I'd taken my bagpipes with me to Lille as a kind of backup plan. And I thought, well, it'll be a little bit exotic, and I can just see if what works in London and in the small town I lived in England also works in Lille. And so after failing miserably to get a a legitimate job at a restaurant, I went out one day with my bagpipes, and I was wearing the traditional Scottish outfit. So this is a kilt, which is many people think looks like a skirt, and jacket and tie and things like that. I'd done experiments where I busked in normal kind of non-traditional clothes, and I busked in traditional clothes. And you always make more money if you're wearing traditional clothes. So I brought those with me because I knew that that was a good thing to do. And I set out my bagpipes and I started playing. Bagpipes, as you may know, are loud. So you have to choose a place where you're not going to disturb too many people. And the place that I started playing was outside the train station. And the area around Lille train station is like the area around many train stations in large cities. A slightly strange area. There were all sorts of people doing things of dubious legality, things that they probably shouldn't be doing. Anyway, that was the area that I chose to set up my shop. And I started playing, and surprise, surprise, people did start giving me money, and it was a nice surprise because I realized that actually, wow, I can get this to work, and it's a way of being able to support myself while I'm here. And my life for perhaps a month or two was it consisted of me waking up in the morning, going and busking for half an hour, 40 minutes, until my lungs were completely exhausted and I couldn't play anymore. And I might earn 30 or 40 euros, be able to go back, pay for my incredibly sad hotel.
Busking outside the Lille train station was not Alastair's original plan. But for the moment, playing his bagpipes was earning him enough money to survive in France. Until one day, while playing his bagpipes, a very unexpected thing happened.
I was standing outside the train station and doing what I'd been doing for the past month or 2 months or so. And I started playing, and there were kind people who'd put coins in my case. And sometimes people would gather around and kind of listen, as people do. My normal clients, I guess you could call them, my normal people who would give me money, they tended to be mothers with children or elderly people, really. It was always quite easy to look at someone and think of the probability that they might give you any money or not. And one time, this young man came up to me, who was probably a similar age to me. He's probably 18 or 19. Really big guy, shaved head, looked like not a particularly nice guy. And I thought, okay, is he going to kind of cause me some kind of trouble? Because I had people who'd taken money from inside the case before. And I thought, okay, what's going to happen here? And instead, he was getting very into the music. He was clapping and he was kind of going, wee. And I was thinking, okay, I guess this might be good news. He might be enjoying it. He just is not the classic person who would give me money before. So I thought, okay, let's just kind of leave him. It's great. And he was getting really, really excited. He was loving it. And I should also add that I'm not a talented bagpiper at all. I'm probably quite a bad bagpiper, but I was exotic. People had probably never seen a bagpiper in Lille before. So this guy was really enjoying the music, and he was getting really into it. And out of the corner of my eye, an elderly woman who must have been in her 70s or so, she came and she kind of jumped on my bagpipes and started shaking them. And she was very upset about something that was going on, upset at the music, or maybe she was a bagpipe expert and she was upset at the quality of my playing. But she was clearly upset about something I didn't understand what. And before I could sort of stop or see what had gone on, this man, this super fan, he'd punched her in the face. And this poor lady was kind of at my feet. And he was standing over her, kind of saying all sorts of nasty things. And I can remember very clearly kind of looking down and thinking, this is a really surreal situation. And I wasn't really sure what to do. And before long, it must have been a couple of seconds, the French riot police arrived, because there were big riots and protests at police brutality in France in that period, and people had set cars on fire, and there was a lot of violence in the cities. So there was a lot of police presence, and these policemen had guns, and they were quite aggressive looking people. And the police, there must have been 2 or 3 policemen or so, but big people with guns and body armor and stuff. They arrived and they kind of took this young man away, and I was there, no. Like I was a crucial eyewitness to the whole event, but also thinking, actually, I don't have a license to play here or anything. I don't want to get in any kind of trouble. And they asked me, what happened, and I explained, and they kind of took him away. And unfortunately, I don't have any kind of further information about this poor man's plight or what happened to him afterwards. That luckily the woman was fine, and that was all okay. But it was a very strange, completely surreal sequence of events, and it all happened in the course of probably less than 30 seconds. I'd gone from playing very nicely, just doing what I'd always been doing, through to having a kind of knocked out woman in front of me and the French riot police. So my time there is filled with these slightly strange anecdotes and examples of these unusual experiences that you have if you put yourself into slightly unusual positions.
It's been over 15 years since Alastair was busking on the streets of Lille. So what is he doing now, you may be asking yourself?
So I'm not still busking. No, I did actually continue to busk while I was at university. It was a very good way of making a bit of money as a student. I'm now no longer a busker. I'm even worse at the bagpipes than I was 16 years ago. Now I live in Malta. I have a company called Leonardo English, and we make a podcast called English Learning for Curious Minds, aimed at intermediate to advanced independent English learners. And the idea is that people can improve their English at the same time as learning weird and wonderful things about the world. And yes, that's what I'm doing at the moment, and having a lot of fun. It's great to see the impact that podcasting can have. And I think you're also doing some amazing work. So you've won over a listener in me as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Alastair. We highly recommend his podcast, English Learning for Curious Minds. It's full of very interesting topics, everything from James Bond to fast food to pirates. You have a link to his podcast on our website, or you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. And that's all for today's episode. Para escuchar todos los episodios de Into the Story y no perderte los siguientes, suscríbete ahora en Spotify, Apple Podcasts o en tu reproductor de podcast favorito. Okay, everyone, until next time, we hope you have a good time, or at least a good story to tell.